The battles of Lexington and Concord on April 19, 1775, were pivotal moments in American history. The confrontation of British regulars with local militia, first on Lexington Green and then at North Bridge in Concord, followed by the extended fighting as the British withdrew back to Boston, were the first military engagements of the American Revolutionary War. Today, visitors can follow the British route along a trail called the Battle Road between Concord and Lexington, which is part of Minuteman National Park. In the centers of both towns and along the Battle Road, there are quite a few houses that were standing in 1775 that are still around today. Two of these buildings, which are known as witness houses, were in the town of Lincoln. Concord and Lexington don't actually share a common border, at least not since 1754, when the town of Lincoln was established. Its northern section extends between them. Hi, this is History with me, Dan Sterner. In this video, I'll talk about these two surviving witness houses and mention others along the Battle Road in Lincoln that have since been lost. Heading east, the Battle Road Trail skirts the area of the Concord-Lexington Road that the British soldiers followed. There's a stretch of part of this original road where a section of the town of Concord is north of the road and Lincoln is south of it. In 1775, property on both sides of the road, and therefore in both towns, were owned by members of the Brooks family. That's why this area of the national park is called Brooks Village. On the Concord side, the Samuel Brooks house, which dates back to 1692, is still there, and so is the home built by Samuel's second cousin, Job Brooks, in 1740. Just east of Job Brooks' farm, across the town line in Lincoln, was a tannery owned by Joshua Brooks. This was located adjacent to Elm Brook near the spot where the British turned to head northeast up the old Bedford Road towards the site known as the Bloody Angle, where they were ambushed by local militiamen. South of the road, in the town of Lincoln, there are two other Brooks family houses that were built after the Revolution. One is the circa 1798 Noah Brooks Tavern, which stands on the site of a lost house that was here in 1775. This was a homestead that Noah's grandfather Thomas had inherited in 1726. Just to the west is a house erected in 1780 by Joshua Brooks, Jr., who was one of the militiamen at North Bridge in Concord. From the Bloody Angle, the path of the British turned again to a more easterly direction. They would have passed the home of Joseph Mason, and then the first of the two houses in Lincoln that are still standing that were in existence on the day of the battles. This is the Hartwell Tavern, which is one of the significant sites for visitors to Minuteman National Park. If you are enjoying this video so far, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. On April 19, 1775, British soldiers would have passed by the Hartwell Tavern on their way to Concord and again on their way back to Boston. It's a classic saltbox-style house that was built in 1732-3. The gambrel-roofed extension on the south side wasn't built until 1783. The house went through many changes over the years, but it was restored by the Park Service to an 18th century appearance. The building was the home of Ephraim and Elizabeth Hartwell, who operated it as a tavern starting in 1756. Nearby stood a house that had been Ephraim Hartwell's childhood home. It was built in the 1690s by his father Samuel, and by the time of the Revolution, it was the home of Ephraim and Elizabeth Hartwell's son, also named Samuel, who was a sergeant with the Lincoln Minutemen. Sadly, this house only survived until 1968, when it burned down after operating as a restaurant for nearly 40 years. The chimney survives today, and in 1985 the Park Service built a protective structure that indicates the original dimensions of the house. According to Hartwell family tradition, both of these houses played an important role in the lead-up to the confrontation at North Bridge in Concord. while Paul Revere, on his mission to spread the word to the American patriots that the British regulars were coming, was famously captured by a British patrol at a spot commemorated a ways further east along the battle road, and his colleague, William Dawes, escaped but lost his horse and had to walk back towards Lexington. Their colleague, Samuel Prescott, who Revere and Dawes had met along the way, was able to ride on. He is said to have reached the Hartwell Tavern, where he awakened Ephraim Hartwell and his son John, who was also a sergeant with the Minutemen. Ephraim sent an enslaved female servant named Violet to alert Captain William Smith. She stopped at Sergeant Samuel Hartwell's house, which was on the way, and while he got ready, his wife Mary ran up the road to awaken Smith, who was commander of the Lincoln Minutemen. Captain Smith was then able to gather his men and reach Concord before the British regulars arrived. She would have run uphill to reach Smith's house, which is the second of the two surviving Battle Road houses in the town of Lincoln. It was built in 1692, and at the time of the battles it was the residence of Captain Smith, who was the brother of Abigail Adams, wife of John Adams. Around the time of the end of the Revolutionary War, it's believed that Captain Smith abandoned his family, as he disappears from historical records. He was known to have suffered from severe debts and is also believed to have had a drinking problem. Like the Hartwell Tavern, the Smith House was restored by the Park Service in the 1980s. Later additions were removed, and the rear lean-to was rebuilt. This feature, first added in 1730, was what gave the house a classic saltbox shape. The house also has a distinctive cove cornice, one of only 3 colonial examples to survive in Massachusetts. After the Redcoats passed by, fighting their running battle back to Boston, on the afternoon of April 19th, Smith's wife, Catherine Louisa, took care of a British soldier who'd been wounded nearby. He died a few days later and was buried on the property. Further along to the east, beyond such landmarks as the Paul Revere capture site, the John Nelson House, which was erected in the early 1800s, and the Minuteman Boulder, there are the locations of 2 more lost houses that stood in the town of Lincoln, in an area of farms owned by members of the Nelson family. These homesteads were situated along the north side of the road, just before the town line with Lexington to the east. Remnants of a stone foundation mark the site of the home of Josiah Nelson, a farmer and housewright who was the father of John Nelson, whose house survives nearby. Josiah's house, built in about 1756, burned down in 1908. There is a legend that on the night of April 18, 1775, a mounted patrol passed by the house, and Josiah, not realizing that they were British soldiers, ran out to ask if there was any news of the British march. According to the story, one of the soldiers slashed at Josiah with his sword, cutting his head. If true, this story would make Josiah Nelson the first casualty of the American Revolution. Although wounded, he was soon able to mount his horse and spread the alarm to the town of Bedford nearby. To the west of Josiah Nelson's house was the home of his brother Thomas. The story of Thomas's lost homestead shows the practicality of people of that time, who did not like to just tear things down and waste material. Thomas and Josiah's sister Tabitha had inherited their father's house when he died in 1770. When she passed away 8 years later, her house, which may have been on land that was proving too swampy, was moved from just across the town line in Lexington to be attached to Thomas's house. East of the Nelson house sites, the Battle Road enters the town of Lexington, where the home of Jacob Whittemore, built in about 1716, is another surviving witness house. Thanks for watching my video about houses along the Battle Road in Lincoln, Massachusetts. Check out my video about the Bloody Angle and my other videos. Thanks for watching.